As you can see here, the Egyptians had Hebrew slaves that looked brown-skinned, and they are related to African Americans who are alive in 2019 from the slave bloodline brought to the United States from 1619 to the 1850s to fulfill the 400-year witchcraft curse. But the Egyptians were black, and they're called the Moors, and they live in the United States also. But they used the witchcraft, and the cross represents the symbol that you see there that has the T at the bottom of the circle, and the Eye of Horus, which is all Illuminati symbols of the darkness. So that's what you're going to learn in this video, the light and the darkness.
In the beginning there was nothing. The universe consisted of a great chaotic ocean, and Ben-Ben emerged amid this primal chaos. Ben-Ben was a huge pyramidal mound. There was a lotus flower with Ben-Ben, and this, when it blossomed, brought the god Ra to the world, and light came with him. Ra by himself generated the first generations of gods. Shu, the god of the air, and Tefnut, the goddess of rain, were born. The universe was enwrapped by a vast mass of primordial waters. Shu and Tefnut plunged into the waters to explore its immensity. Ra felt afflicted after realizing that their children were taking a long time to return, and fearing never seeing them again, he sent his best messenger to find them. Shu and Tefnut returned safe and sound, and Ra's joy was so immense that human beings were born from his tears. After returning, their children generated in turn Geb, the god of the earth, and Nut, the goddess of the sky, and thus the sky and the earth were created. The great god Ra sovereignly ruled the universe power, and he was awarded the title of the first pharaoh. The god gifted Egypt with several sacred animals like the ox and the lion, but his greatest offering was the creation of the Nile River. Around its shores, men would edify a civilization glorifying the gods. But Ra had a premonition that his grandchildren would give birth to a new generation of gods who would put an end to his reign. And so the great god forbade the sky and the earth to have any offspring whatsoever. But Nut and Geb disobeyed and gave rise to a powerful offspring: Isis, Nephth, Seth, and Osiris. They dethroned Ra, and Osiris started to reign over the world. But the new god's throne was not safe, because his brother Seth was eager to take all power for himself. And so the saga of Egyptian gods began. After deposing the god Ra, the deity who gave origin to the Egyptian world, Osiris became the new god of the universe. The new supreme god took the goddess Isis as his wife and started a reign of great prosperity. Osiris brought civilization to men, who, until that point, lived quite primitively. The god taught them agriculture, weaving, and how to make bread. Besides that, he decreed the use of laws, which would give order to chaos. The Egyptian civilization began to flourish under the reign of the benevolent god Osiris. However, Osiris had a powerful and ambitious brother, Seth. His kingdom stood in the arid desert around Egypt, and so he was jealous of his brother, who had a fertile and prosperous kingdom. Osiris had an affair with Nephthys, Set's wife, and Anubis, the god of the dead, emerged from this union. Angered by his brother's betrayal, Set prepared his revenge. The god of the dry lands and personification of evil invited Osiris for a great feast in his honor. During the feast, Seth gifted the guests with a beautiful coffin and said he would offer it to the one who fit into it perfectly. Osiris decided to try it, and immediately after settling in, Seth closed the coffin, trapping the god. The evil god threw the coffin into the Nile, drowning the supreme god. Isis wept profoundly after losing her beloved husband, and these tears poured into the Nile River, giving rise to its traditional floods. The goddess and her sister Nephthys looked for Osiris's body, and Isis, after finding it, tried to hide it, but Seth spotted it nonetheless and smashed it into 42 pieces, spreading them throughout Egypt. Isis, with Anubis's help, managed to recover the pieces and, under the guidance of the god of the dead, she mummified Osiris. Using her divine powers, the goddess was able to resurrect her love, but Osiris would now reign over the world of the dead. After coming back to life, Osiris had a son with Isis. His name was Horus, and he swore he would defeat Seth, the usurper of the throne that was his by right. Seth, the god of destruction, had murdered Osiris, the god who reigned supreme in Egyptian mythology. Set took the throne from his brother for himself and unleashed his reign of terror. Nevertheless, Osiris had generated an heir together with the goddess Isis. His name was Horus. This was a falcon god, whose prophecy said that he would reign over the skies and would bring the light back to Egypt, ending the darkness brought by Set. Horus, already an adult, decided to claim his throne, which had been usurped by his uncle. The contention is judged by the gods, while the court, presided over by the sun god Ra, decided who would be worthy to sit on the throne. A series of clashes between Set and Horus had begun. Set had Ra's sympathy, since the usurper protected the sun god from the serpent Apophis, while the latter crossed the skies. Set proposed a challenge to Horus. Both would have to transform themselves into hippos, and should be submerged for 3 months. Horus relied on his mother, the goddess Isis, to take advantage of Set's vulnerability to kill him. The goddess felt sympathy for Set and could not kill him. This betrayal enraged Horus, who then attacked his mother, cutting off her head. The god Thoth, the deity of knowledge, saved the goddess, replacing the severed head with a cow's head. The clash between Set and Horus continued for many years. When fighting in the desert, Set managed to pluck Horus's eyes. Due to Hathor's help, the goddess of love, Horus had his vision restored. The court of gods demanded a reconciliation between Set and Horus. The evil god, pretending to be benevolent, invited Horus for a feast in his palace. During the night, Set tried to abuse his nephew, making him unworthy to the throne. However, Horus managed to defend himself and prevented the god's poisonous seed. Horus decided to take revenge and, with the help of the goddess Isis, the god placed his divine seed in lettuce leaves, which were then offered to Set by the goddess Isis. The god of barren deserts ate the contaminated lettuce. Poisoned, Set started to deteriorate in front of everyone, and a golden disc emerged in his forehead. Thoth grabbed the bright disc and ingrained it in her own head. Seth had been humiliated, and that was when, after 80 years, the court granted Horus the throne that was his by right. Isis couldn't be more proud to see her son, with Osiris assuming the father's throne. Set's fate was to travel with Ra, the sun god of the skies, and his enraged screams could be heard with thunder. And so, Horus's reign over Egypt began, and all the pharaohs who one day reigned over Egypt were among his descendants. Ra is the sun god in Egyptian mythology. This god is usually depicted as a being with a man's body and a head of a falcon. The sun disk is over his head. He had been one day the greatest of all gods, but time wore him down, and finding himself too old, he decided to relinquish the power and go to the skies. This god is one of the most revered figures in Egyptian mythology. As the sun god, one of his duties was to drive away the darkness, and to accomplish his work, the god crossed the skies on his sunboat, lighting the whole world. But when the twilight came, he and his vessel plunged into the sea waters towards the underworld. There he would have to sail through the dark world and cross the 12 gates, which would be the 12 regions of the netherworld. Ra took an hour to go through each gate. Osiris was in one of them, the lord of the underworld, whom Ra always visited to pay his respects. But before leaving the underworld's darkness, the god was attacked by the terrible snake Apophis. This force of chaos tried to destroy the god's vessel, and each day the serpent seemed closer to accomplish her desire. Apophis once managed to swallow the sunboat, putting an end to the sunlight in the morning. But the serpent failed to hold the god in her stomach and regurgitated him. This event was marked as a solar eclipse. However, destroying Ra's boat became more difficult, since Set, the god of destruction, after losing the dispute of the supreme throne for Horus, had been condemned to navigate with Ra across the skies. He helped the sun god, defending his vessel against the terrible serpent, defeating it several times, making Ra's underworld journey safer. The god Ra was a figure worshipped throughout Egypt, but this god was especially adored in the city of Heliopolis. The god's prestige was so vast that other traditions of Egyptian religions of antiquity merged the god's depiction, along with the greatest figure of their own pantheons. For instance, the figures of the supreme gods Amun and Atum were also known as Amun-Ra and Atum-Ra.
So, none of that information debunks the light of the universe. It doesn't debunk the heavens of the light of the universe. It just showed you that the darkness, the six heavens of chaos exist, and that evil exists. Nothing about that talked to you about love, kindness, peace, joy, a new earth where there will be no death and where there will be no hate and no more war. That was all war, kill, hate, jealousy. The Egyptian culture has always been about the darkness. And the Illuminati uses witchcraft from the darkness and the Egyptian culture, which is from the darkness. And that's why Beyonce and Nicki Minaj and a lot of the Illuminati women, especially the black women in America that are celebrities, wear a lot of Egyptian witchcraft stuff. Because the Egyptians were the black Moors. And they live in the United States. And they are pastors in churches. They are leaders in the United States, in the government, in medicine, in law firms, in sports, and in the music industry, and in Hollywood. But they don't represent the 12 chosen Hebrew tribes from the bloodline of Yahusha's chosen people, especially the tribe of Yahuda, the slave bloodline brought to the United States under the witchcraft curse from 1619, August 20th, 1619 to August 20th, 2019, which has passed. We are in November now, heading into the Illuminati holiday of Thanksgiving and then the Illuminati holiday of Saint Nicholas, who was a pope. So if you're celebrating Christmas, you're celebrating an idol-worshipping Saint Nicholas. It has nothing to do with the Messiah, Yahusha, and it has nothing to do with the fake Messiah, Jesus. It has everything to do with the celebration of Pope Saint, or not Pope Saint Nicholas, Pope Nicholas. He became a saint after his death, and his day of celebration was December 6th, but on 1870, it became the Christmas celebration in the United States. So walk in the light of Yahusha, in the footsteps of Yahusha, in the footsteps of Yahuwah, and in the light of the pre-existent Father of the heavens, of the light of the universe. Cleanse from the darkness by using the 613 laws in the Torah, which includes dietary laws. Just cut out meat and be kind to people and do the Sabbath every week from Friday evening to Saturday evening. And follow Yahusha's fruits of the Spirit, which is kindness, joy, peacefulness, self-control, forgiveness, goodness. Google the 613 laws and the fruits of the Spirit. It's not hard. It's right there in your pocket, in your phone. Have a nice day. Love you. Peace.